I'm going to take a bit of a left turn here, and if you don't read any other book on this list, please read this book. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about books, specifically my favorite self-help book. I have broken this video up into different chapters, if you will, based on topic of self-help book. So if you're interested in a specific topic like manifestation or money or psychology or whatever you happen to be interested in, I will have put the chapters down below in the description so you can jump around and find what you are most interested in. Or if you'd prefer, you can just watch this video all throughout, grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's have a cozy chat. Getting into our very first chapter, we're going to talk about general manifestation. The first book on my list is Super Attractor by Gabby Bernstein. I think she's really good at introducing you to topics on manifestation. It's really like high level, easy to digest. There's nothing too crazy, too woo-woo about what she, presents in her books, but it does give you like the really good basics of manifestation along with sort of some like, here's how it worked in my life kind of a thing. Gabby Bernstein has written so many books, so pick up like any one of hers. But in particular, I think Super Attractor is one of her best. Next is Ask and It Is Given by Abraham Hicks. Abraham Hicks, the absolute GOAT of manifestation, in my opinion. If you don't know about Abraham Hicks, Esther is like a channel for like an interdimensional being. It sounds kind of crazier than I actually think it comes across in person or like when you're listening to them. They have a lot of free stuff on YouTube, so if you don't want to buy the book, just watch their speeches. But I think Ask and It Is Given is a really good introduction to the way that they teach manifestation, as well as like teaching about like the vortex and getting your emotions up and like sort of some practical tips on manifestation through your emotions and how to like move from like despair to anger to hopefulness. Like they go through all of that, as well as talking about some more like why gratitude is important and why your thoughts are important and how your thoughts impact your world. And I also really like some of the analogies that they use in this book in particular, but in through their teachings. Really impactful, really useful, really helpful, especially when it comes to emotions and your emotional capacity for manifestation. So great book. Another absolute classic. I feel like if you're in this realm of manifestation, you probably have read this book before, but it is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This is actually the very first manifestation book that I ever read. I don't even know where this book came from, as like how that story usually goes, but I've read it so many times, and I just think every time I read it, there's so many like little nuggets that I didn't think of before or didn't pick up on before. Napoleon Hill studied some of the greats like the Rockefellers and Carnegie and like all of those kind of like old world moguls, and that's where this book came from, is him studying those people. And in the book he gives really good examples, really good stories of like real people, at times maybe a little sexist, but if you can ignore all that, it's got some great wisdom in it. Next book on my list is Things Will Get As Good As You Can Stand by Laura Doyle. A little controversial of an author, in my opinion. She also wrote a book called The Surrendered Wife, which sounds really bad. It's actually pretty good. I am a raging feminist, don't worry, but I really have loved her books. She talks about like the receiving piece, which I don't think many other books focus on, or focus on it in a way that I've found that I could like really understand what I was supposed to do and what it was supposed to feel like. This one is really good, but also if you can get past the name, The Surrendered Wife is also really good. Next up on the list, I'm going to take a bit of a left turn here and introduce you to an author that you may have never heard of, even if you're like big into manifestation, and that is Jason Miller, and in particular this book, The Elements of Spellcrafting. So this is actually like a witchcraft book, and like it teaches you real spells, like actual spells like candles and correspondences and herbs. I don't really live in that kind of a world very often, but I do find that witchcraft books talk a lot about manifestation. I just find it's like a very different, interesting perspective. But this book in particular, like, goes through the steps of manifestation really clearly and really well, in my opinion. Even if you're like not a super beginner and you feel like, oh, well, like I know all the steps of manifestation, this one was actually a really good refresher and showed me a different perspective on how I can look at manifestation. So highly recommend. The last book I have in this category of general manifestation is The Secret. The book is fine. Just watch it on YouTube. The documentary is so much better than the book, in my opinion, but I wanted to include it because a lot of people like learn about manifestation. At least that's where I kind of did, along with Napoleon Hill. So wanted to include it, but yeah, go watch the documentary. Next up, I have 3 books that I recommend to anybody who is currently in their 20s, early 20s, teenage years. Start with, I think this may be a little bit of an obvious one, so forgive me. I promise we'll get into the more niche ones in a little bit. But the first one is You Are a Badass. It talks a lot about like getting in your own way and making sure that you have the confidence to do the things that you want to do. Talks about a little bit of gratitude, about being happy with where you are, all of those concepts, but I think are really, really good, especially if you're just starting to dip your feet into the world of self-help, especially if you are in your late teens, early 20s. This is a great one. Next one is The Defining Decade by Meg Jay. This book I absolutely adore. She's a psychologist that primarily works with people in their 20s. So when she goes through like stories about her patients and what they're dealing with and how they overcame some of the challenges that they were having in their 20s, and then what you can take from that in your own 20s, it just made me feel a lot less alone when I was going through some of the more challenging aspects of being in my 20s. It also gave me some really good nuggets of wisdom for moving forward in my life that I even still to this day think about. It's made like a massive impact on particularly my career. And next up is They Say I Say. This is actually a textbook that I got in first year university, and it has helped me pass so many courses, write so many essays, communicate so well in my professional life. It's a bunch of like templates for how to structure a paragraph, which maybe that seems simplistic, but when you are on deadline and just trying to get something done, these templates are so, so useful. And I got really good grades in university, and I think it was mostly because of this book. And I was quick. Like, I could cram something in. I could finish a paper in a few hours and get a good grade on it. So this one, highly recommend. And not even just if you're in your 20s. Like, if you're in corporate or anything and you need to know how to write like a memo or an email, or you need to be persuasive in your proposal, it's a great book for that too. Highly recommend. Okay, next chapter we're going to talk about is like general self-help, or what I feel like a lot of people think of when they think of self-help. I'm going to call this chapter general self-help, but there's a lot of different stuff in here. But yeah, let's get into it. First one is The Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control. If you've ever felt like stuck in your life, I feel like this is such a great book to even just like comfort that what you're feeling is normal, and then also get you out of that like stuck, I don't know what to do next, I feel frozen, and into like action and like productivity in a not toxic way. I feel like a lot of those productivity books can be very toxic, and this one is very like gentle and calming and understanding, gives you really useful tips, but also makes you feel like you're not going crazy. This is a bit of a wild card, but it is Going to Pieces Without Falling Apart. This one is actually about meditation mostly, and how like mindfulness is really important in your life. His takeaways and his way that he's applied the teachings of meditation that can be applicable in like the everyday world, and like, again, like at your job, with your friends, with your family, with money, like all of that. I think this one is just like really good for kind of opening your mind up to the possibilities that life can be smooth and calm and happy and joyful. And it doesn't need to come from outside sources. You just need to find it within yourself. I am not a sporty girl. I do like to run, and I do obviously like go to the gym and stuff, but I'm not into sports. So I will say that as a disclaimer before I give you this book recommendation. Ender This one was honestly probably my top read of 2024, I think is when I first read it. This book is so good, and if you don't read any other book on this list, please read this book. It's so inspiring, and the author goes into like all these amazing feats that humans have done, and it's just about like how far a human can push themselves physically but also mentally. It also has some like really interesting like statistics and stuff. This book will make you want to go and run a marathon. Like, it's just, I love, love, love this book. What list of top self-help books would be complete without, of course, me mentioning Atomic Habits? I feel like everybody has read this at some point. If you haven't read this book, you need to pause this video right now and just like go and read it, because it is absolutely life-changing. It is all about just like building systems, building habits, how to implement them in a way that actually makes you stick with stuff. This is such a great book. Go and read it. Next is The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. I love this book so much. It made me want to become a minimalist. I'm obviously not a minimalist, but it did make me want to get rid of a buttload of stuff. I will say that getting rid of a bunch of stuff takes such a huge mental load off of you. It gave me the like motivation to start and to like think about things in terms of like, is this blanket or is this pillow or is this piece of clothing bringing joy to my life? Next book is The Big Leap. I've read this one a couple of times actually. It's a good kind of like palate cleanser, or almost just like a good refresh book. Like if you're ever feeling like you're kind of not in the mood to read self-help, or you feel like you're stuck somewhere, you feel like you're just sort of like blah, I feel like this is a really good one to read. It's really quick, like it's not a big book, just really good like ways of thinking about things. A good dose of, are you just making this harder for yourself than it needs to be? Are you actually the problem in your life? Okay, next chapter is money. I've broken this chapter into two separate subcategories as well, just to make things extra spicy, extra fun. And I'm going to talk on the one hand about like money manifestation and like the mindset around money. And then on the other hand, it's going to be books about how to build a budget and the more like tangible day-to-day, what do I actually do? Starting with the practicalities of money, I could not recommend a better book on how to build a budget, how to know like where to start with money in a very practical, everyday tracking, knowing where your money's going, knowing how much you're making, paying off debt and everything, than The Barefoot Investor. This is such a great book. It's not a make you feel bad about your finances book. It's not one of those like Dave Ramsey style, have to do these things otherwise you're a bad person, debt is horrible. It's not that. It's very practical, gives you really good like step-by-steps. It's a great basic. Next up is Your Money or Your Life. I feel like this one is a very good like secondary book to The Barefoot Investor. So read this one first, and then you can read this one. This one is a little bit more like psychology based, what your money is actually doing for your life, and are you spending your money in a way that aligns with who you want to be, your values, etc. And this one's really good for if you've done the basics for a few months, then I would say graduate and read this one. While you're reading those two, you can also read The Psychology of Money. This one's fairly new book. Fantastic. So good to learn about like why people do things the way that they do when it comes to money. This is very much like a behavioral economics book, which is like why economics, like traditional economics, when you apply it to real human beings, does it not work out like math. Like now moving into money manifestation, I'm gonna start with Money and the Law of Attraction. Again, another Abraham Hicks book. If you read Ask and It Is Given, this is a really good kind of follow-up book to that if you're interested in specifically manifesting money. This one goes into a lot of like examples and like pitfalls that people fall into specifically with money and how to get yourself out of it emotionally and like from a manifestation perspective. So this one's really good. Again, I love Abraham Hicks. Now, if you're looking for something a little bit more intense when it comes to money manifestation, you want to go a little bit deeper than sort of like the Gabby Bernstein, Abraham Hicks, A Happy Pocket Full of Money, I think is a really good next step. It goes into a little bit more of like the physics behind manifestation, and there are a few chapters in here where I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. it feels like it's like gotten too deep for me. But lots of people like that. I recommend this one to a lot of people too if they've been in the manifestation world for a while and they want something a little bit more intense, I guess, for lack of a better word. Next on my list is a book that I read really early on in my like career and like learning about manifestation, and that is Rich Lucky Bitch. She won a contest in Australia to like go travel around the world and stay at the nicest hotels and everything, and she used manifestation in order to win that prize. So she talks a lot about that in this book, and then the actual practical steps that she did to make sure that she won that money contest. So it's really good for like specific how-tos and like, okay, you want to actually like do something with manifestation and not just like be in your head all the time. So this gives you like really tangible examples of some tactics you can use to manifest money. And speaking of tactics to manifest money, Manifestation Babe or Catherine Zenkita, she's a fantastic manifestation teacher. She has a lot of resources online. She wrote this one quite a few years ago, but it's a 30-day program to manifest your first $1,000. Really practical, everyday things that you do, quite easy to do too. Like you can do them in less than 15 minutes every day or so. And I just think it's a really good like way to prove to yourself that anybody can manifest anything they need or anything that they want. And you don't have to manifest $1,000. It can be whatever you want. Be 10,000, 100,000, a million, whatever you want. But it's a 30-day guide on that. We are on to our very last chapter, if you can believe it. This last chapter is sort of like a miscellaneous category, but it also kind of focuses more on storytelling, and the self-help is like built into the story, if you will. So the first one I have is the surrender experiment. This is about some guy in the 70s who just wants to sit and meditate for his whole life, and crazy good things keep happening to him because he is surrendering to the universe. So a little bit of manifestation in here too, but also a little bit about the power of meditation, the power of going back to yourself, to centering yourself. This author actually wrote a very, very popular book too. You may have heard of it, called The Untethered Soul. I've read that one too. I think The Surrender Experiment is way better. It's very intriguing to see what this guy's life was like, all because he decided to just surrender his life to the universe. This book is actually the reason I'm sitting here talking to you right now, and that is The 5 a.m. Club. I recently just finished reading this book. I've implemented it, and I'm here because of it. Interesting book. Not what I expected. It isn't really a typical self-help book, but does have typical self-help themes in it. It's more of like a story than anything else. Get up at 5 a.m., that's the basics of it. It's a great read too, and I think that I would be doing you a disservice if I just gave you the summary and you didn't actually like read the book. So read it. It's great. Next up is The Alchemist. So this is like a really good, just sort of like fictional story about like the power of following your dreams and the power of like listening to yourself and again, kind of surrendering to your path. It's a really quick read too. It's really just like sweet and nice, and the takeaway from it is just live authentically to your true self and you'll end up where you're supposed to be. So that is a super summary of it. I highly recommend that you actually read the book because the magic is in the reading of it. Next up is The Happiness of Pursuit. Happiness is not a destination, it's a journey. The people who are happiest in the world are those who actually are striving for something, working towards something. And that's what this book is about. It's about a guy who goes through some like journey of trying to figure out like what happiness is and how he finds it. It's the friends we made along the journey kind of a story, but really good for trying to figure out like what your life path is and what you need to do with your life and how you can even start to sort of figure that out. He also wrote some other books that I really like. The Art of Nonconformity is a little bit more of a classic self-help book too. This one's really good as well, about living against the grain, kind of living more true to yourself and not worrying so much about what other people think of you. Next is probably a book you've never heard of before. It's a bit of a wild card, not really self-help, but it's Alligators, Old Minks, and New Money. This is about it's a true story of a woman who follows her dreams to open up a vintage clothing store in New York, I believe, and just like all the cool things that happened in her life because she decided to follow her dreams. It's really just like cute and makes you feel like you can do anything if you have a passion for it. If you are into vintage clothing too, this will make you want to go to Value Village immediately. It's such a great book. Next up is The Happiness Project. This one I've read quite a few times actually. It's about a woman's journey to get out of depression, basically. She's unhappy and she wants to figure out a way to get happier. It's all very like practical, like this is what I'm doing to get happier. It's not like this some like big kind of like journey that somebody goes through. It's like, okay, I'm gonna work out today. I'm gonna try and make more friends today. This week I'm focusing on creativity. This, like all of that kind of thing. If you're more like a logical brain and the manifestation stuff is maybe like a little too woo-woo for you, but you do want to improve your life, this one's great. And it is a good kind of like personal story about somebody going through something that you might be going through as well. I know I have gone through something similar in my life too. Not So Gentle, next one. I feel like sometimes we all need a good who's gonna carry the boats guy in our head telling us to shut the fuck up and just do it. And Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins, is the absolute best story about that. He's a guy that went from somebody who was overweight, didn't really do anything with his life, to becoming a Navy SEAL and like excelling physically, mentally, emotionally in every aspect of his life. He did like a 24-hour race at one point, like just crazy stuff. Mostly physical crazy stuff, but also mental and like business-wise too. And this is very much just like tough love, get it done. If you're doing 75 hard, you should be reading this book for your 10 pages. Then very last book on my list, again, isn't technically a self-help book, but I think it's like such an inspirational book. Expand your world, try new things, travel, etc. And that is Eat, Pray, Love. Maybe it's the white woman in me. I love Eat, Pray, Love. I'm not saying that I love Elizabeth Gilbert for everything she is and does, but this book in particular is like super, super special. I will say too, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, if you do like Elizabeth Gilbert's writing style, is also really good. She talks about like, in particular, there's this piece about like creativity isn't a part of you, it isn't you. Your creativity is like a being separate from you that visits you. I find that really helpful for like creatives and stuff. So if you're in that world, Big Magic might be a book that you want to read. But if you just need a good story that makes you feel like, okay, maybe it's not too late, I'm not too old, I'm not too stuck where I am, that I can change my life, this is a great one. Okay, that is all the book. I feel like that was kind of rapid fire. We went through those like quite quickly, I think, although who knows how long this video is going to be. Maybe it's like an hour long. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around. I am a very small creator, so any like, comment, view, even if you're not interested in interacting, is massively helpful for me. Thank you so much for making it this far. I'd love it if you stuck around and subscribed. All the books that I mentioned will be mentioned down below too. Go to a local bookstore or a secondhand bookstore. I'm sure you'll be able to find the majority of these. Again, thanks so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!